talking about SNL, the history, the mysteries, and all the hot impressions in between, breaking down all the numbers as well. In your favorite sketches with special guests, it's on the Saturday Night Network.
Yes, welcome on in, everybody, to the Saturday Night Network for another edition of our Monday Night Roundtable, the last Monday Night Roundtable of 2024, here to cover the Marty Short and Hozier episode of Saturday Night Live. My name is John from the SNN. Happy holidays. So excited to be with you on this night to talk through this all-star episode of SNL. So much to talk about with everything we saw on Saturday night. And to talk about it, we put together an all-star team of podcasters with us tonight. So joining us is the one, the only, Sean Grant is here. Sean, how are you? Very festive.
Woo! I'm so excited to be here, guys. I'm here for one reason and one reason only, to kick Rich Tackenberg's butt. Well, not his actual butt, but his opinion butt.
There's going to be, if there's a first time for everything, Sean, let's hope tonight's the night you succeed.
Yes, that voice you just heard was our low rent Santa, who has been with us for, I think, almost every single Christmas holiday roundtable that we have had here over the last 5 years at the SNN, and that is Rich Tackenberg. Rich, how are you?
I'm great. I'm so excited to be here. This is the Dream Team panel and Sean, which is a real lovely, it's a great, this is a great episode, fun, my favorite episode of the year. Forget season premieres, forget season finales. This is my favorite episode of the year. Didn't disappoint, got a lot to say. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, can't wait to get into it. And we'll also get into it with my Canadian friend who's currently in the middle of a snowstorm that's headed my way. So thanks for that. Kirstin Rajala is here. Kirstin, how are you?
You're very welcome. I feel like I'm perpetuating every Canadian stereotype here. We're talking about snowstorms. It'll be a white Christmas. And I feel like I should have made popcorn because I forgot how much of a verbal sparring there's going to be between Sean and Low Rent Santa. So I need to be better prepared next time to watch this go on.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. This is always the fun of this. It's like, we got Jost and Shay who do the joke swap. We got Rich and Sean who always battle on these roundtables. So can't wait to dive right in. And, every single roundtable we've had this season, we've always talked about the cold open first because it's been so separate from the show that it just made sense to do it that way. But given what we saw here in this episode, let's talk about Marty Short first and our excitement to see him come back to host the show for a fifth time. And then we'll dive into the cold open and all of the moments we want to get into tonight. So obviously, Marty, a huge friend of the show. You may remember him being a cast member during season 10 of Saturday Night Live 40 years ago. He was on the show and he came in and he was, I would say, I wouldn't necessarily call him the star of that season, but I think if you're watching close enough, he definitely, his output was unreal, had all these amazing characters, came from SCTV, brought a ton of stuff to the show. And then, that was when Lorne Michaels was not around. Lorne would come back the following season and Marty would not return, but he would return as a host a couple years later with the Three Amigos. He would then host again in season 22 in this run of all these former cast members returning to host. Then you will see him with Steve and Marty. Oh, no, actually, before we got to that, you got him in 2012 for the Christmas show. So the last time he did the Christmas show, which was a huge parade as well. Then Steve and Marty a couple years ago. And of course, this one here tonight, joining the Five Timers Club. So for you, Sean Grant, how did you feel about Martin Short getting the honor of hosting this Christmas show?
Man, I was shocked that he, wasn't in the Five Timers already. But yeah, man, I was so excited that he got the honor, and the cold open was amazing. I was going back and forth because I was like, man, I loved it at first. I loved the entire episode at first. And then I realized that Rich was going to love it. So then I had to, like the skilled debater that I am, I had to rewatch it and learn to hate a lot of what was going on in that episode because I want to tear Rich apart. So I have counterpoints, I have chaotic points, I have ways to go. You have to be versatile in this game, baby. So I'm going to take you in no matter how you want to pivot around the ring, Rich, I'm going to take you down.
I look forward to it. All right, Kirstin. So what's your experience with Marty? Do you enjoy getting to see him on the show? Or are you excited to have him host for the fifth time?
Absolutely. He's this quick-witted little Canadian chestnut, and I adore him. He's joy in a human. He should be bottled and sold. It is such an enjoyable watch. If you think back to those iconic characters that, John, you mentioned, like Nathan Thurm and the real kind of character-driven, Lawrence, the swimmer, the synchronized swimmer and such, he's always doing something memorable. He's always at an 11, so the energy is going to be up. And I was glad to see him on a solo run. I'll let you replay the joke he made about sex and solo, but I was glad to see him insert dirty joke here.
Funny enough, that's the one I didn't pull, but I did pull a few of them that we're gonna get to in a moment because that one was pretty good. Yeah, and I mean, there's been some question in the times that he's hosted the show himself about how many times has he truly hosted the show, because a couple of the times that he's headlined has been with other hosts. But as far as we're concerned, this was his 5th time being there, and him being so ingrained in Saturday Night Live. And Rich, I feel like Marty, we sometimes use this term, made in a lab. I feel like he was just bred to be on this show and do his thing. So were you excited to get him back and host for the 5th time?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm old enough to have watched his season in its entirety when I was a kid in real time, and an abbreviated season because I think of a writer's strike, but still, I just think one of the most influential seasons in setting that tone is, as Kirstin said, I mean, Ed Grimley, that Jackie Rogers Jr. I mean, so many fantastic characters, so many iconic characters. And but when he was booked, like Kirstin said, I was excited to see him, but I so hoped that I did not see two people who I very much like on SNL, Steve Martin and Selena Gomez, because I didn't want this this is another Only Murders host feel to it, as this they've sort of morphed into. I wanted this to feel like an alumni hosting the show, not a Hulu single camera comedy star hosting the show with his friends. And they very much delivered that. So I was very happy about that.
Yeah, see, I didn't even think about that as a possibility. I thought that if Steve would be there, it would be more SNL focused than Only Murders focused. But as Marty said,
my dear friend Steve Martin is also part of the club. He would have been here tonight, but he had a conflict with me not wanting him to be here.
So we didn't.
Fantastic.
We didn't get Steve, but we got a lot of other people. And it is, I was thinking about how I don't know if ironic's the right word or how serendipitous it is that Marty was on the season of Saturday Night Live that most people consider an all-star season, with Billy Crystal and Christopher Guest and, JLD, like a lot of, people on there that are big names. And then, he's synonymous now with hosting a couple episodes that truly feel like all-star episodes of the show. And, I want to get into the idea of an all-star episode and how it plays to the audience, but let's talk about this cold open so we could talk about the names that we ended up seeing here during this moment. So this was so exciting to open up on the Five Timers Club. So the first shot we get to see is the incredible Tom Hanks.
In December 1990, I created the SNL Five Timers Club.
Okay, well, sort of. He was the person who was front of camera for the Five Timers Club, but I do think Smigel and Conan and Greg Daniels and a few of the others helped with that. So we got the Five Timers Club all the way back in 1990. We saw some really famous faces, and to me, that first Five Timers Club sketch is the biggest turn in the show's history in the lore of the show, of being like, okay, this is a show within a show. There's moments in the first few seasons with the lockers and stuff like that, but this is really like the show is just beyond one era of the show, and the history of the show starts, the head starts eating the tail, as you would say. But obviously referring back to that original sketch, and we're going to get a lot of people coming in, including Paul Rudd, who's going to be there, is going to welcome Marty into the club.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're great. You're great.
Which is a classic reference to the original handshake in the Five Timers Club of, Paul Simon and Steve Martin doing that handshake together. We're going to see Tina Fey enter the club as well. She is going to be testing Marty, asking him,
quick, name 3 current cast members.
No idea.
Correct.
which is the test that every five-timer has to go through. Bowen will play a waiter. We get Alec Baldwin coming in, Scarlett Johansson coming in without Colin Jost, Kristen Wiig, who is there.
I'm not living here.
Melissa McCarthy as well will come in. We'll get some physical comedy from Melissa McCarthy. Emma Stone is there. Melissa will go through the wall. In comes John Mulaney and Jimmy Fallon eventually to hand over the jacket. So I'm going to start with you, Rich, here as a huge historian of the show, someone who's been watching this show forever. What did the moment mean to you? Did it live up to the hype?
Oh my God, it's so lived up to the hype. I mean, for me, a Five Timers Club, it's such a tricky, they're always good, but to be great, you have to be very tricky in the jokes have to be great. The velocity of cameos has to stay high because we're always waiting to see who's going to come in next. There's also the balance of the who is a cameo that we're actually excited to see versus, oh, it's Elliot Gould. That's great. We love Elliot Gould, but we don't really care about Elliot Gould. And then the timing of the jokes and the delivery of the jokes from a bunch of people who sometimes can be quite rusty at doing live TV has to be strong. And I'd say we hit like A+, B, maybe B+ on that. And so I thought this was one of the greats, just super fun, real fun jokes, really great people to see. And I thought the entrance specifically of Melissa McCarthy going through the back wall and John Mulaney then walking through the opening of the hall was such a great moment as far as how cameos work. The call out of sort of, cameos only being for rating boosts and then, two people walk on, everything about it. I really enjoyed this.
I think Sammy on Saturday said that he was overstimulated. I was so overstimulated with people coming in that I almost was like, I can't focus on what they're actually saying. And watching it on a second time and getting to see the actual substance of the club, I definitely didn't give it enough credit. They were having so much fun, including that whole run of, things that they want to admit that that to me was so great. I pulled a couple clips from that. The
Ant-Man's powers aren't good.
I mean,
just so great.
Unbelievable. Of course, Hanks always gives me a good laugh.
I never had COVID.
And, truly, for all of the problems and jokes that we've made about Alec Baldwin, specifically on SNL in the last couple of years, I just think, his ability to make fun of himself in
I have way too many children.
was so good for me.
So
So there's
great.
a lot of great stuff there. Kirstin, what did the moment mean to you getting to see this incredible Five Timers Club cold open?
I've said before and I'll say it again, I love cameos. So this was a cameo party, clearly. And I do think it overexceeded my expectations because of a few things. One, because the cameos were great. They had great people, like you said, sure, Elliot Gould, legacy, great. But, having Kristen come in and have that bit with Martin and then having Emma come in with the same bit with Kristen, it just fed my imagination about all the amazing behind the scenes stuff that whether or not, clearly I don't think they hooked up, but like just the idea that they're all friends behind the scenes, maybe they did. And I loved when Scarlett shut the door in Joe's face. She was sitting there smiling and she closes the door.
We found out why later.
Oh, yes, we did. Oh my God. But I found that the confessions were very real. Like they weren't just throwaway jokes. They were very, spilling of the tea and specific to the people, and they were very clever and it was very well done, and I cackled out loud at all of them. And I was surprised that Alec Baldwin went in with the too many children joke, because we've seen all the gossip rags talk about that, but he's never said anything. So the fact that he said that while he's smoking a cigarette in the corner felt almost too real. I loved it. I was very happy, and I loved the candid moments that they enjoyed. Couldn't get the jacket on, so then he's hugging him. I mean, it was beautiful for me. Beautiful.
Yeah. And look, I get it. Easy for me to say, but I'll just say Alec Baldwin on the show was given a lot of shit for playing Trump for so many years, and people were very tired of seeing him. But on the show itself, let's give the man his respect. Hosted the show more than anybody in its history, is always game for a really fun moment. I think maybe we could start to appreciate him a little bit more before we can't anymore. So I think
Microwave.
There's a million great Baldwin moments over the years, and and I get it, but just for me, I'm always happy to see him on the show. Sean, for you, how did this play? did you enjoy it? Were you excited to see all of the people coming in? I know as a newer fan of the show or somebody who isn't as a diehard of the fan as, let's say, myself, I'm curious how it worked for you.
Sucked. No, I was playing. No, I just wanted to piss off Rich. Of course, it was beautiful to watch, man. Of course, Melissa McCarthy's going to give you that strong button. She makes you really miss that athletic like the comedian that's going to dive in and do that type of thing. I don't think the show has that regularly. A lot of witty people, a lot of people who are very verbose and good with, obviously landing a punchline. But just to have that person that can put a button on it with some physical comedy, man, that's a very rare talent. And, obviously we're going to talk about some of what she does in later sketches. But, yeah, just to see how she was able to escalate that past just the walking in and like Rich said, Rich, that's my problem, man. He always eats up my takes. I feel like he steals my notes. I don't know if he works for Google or like if he's working with these bots or something, man. He gets my notes first and he says my points, man. That's why I wanted to go before him. Because he's got like tricks. He's got spies, maybe drones working for him. But anyway, yeah, I was going to make that point. Mulaney coming in over the body, man. Perfect way to bring him in. Because I don't know if he would have got the same shouts as everybody else just walking in, So he got to ride that big laugh. And it was fun to watch, man. Everybody hit their marks.
So my number one question that I would love to ask one of the writers of this sketch is, did you call everybody? Like, how many people did you ask to be in this? Who said yes? Who said no? Or it was just whoever was available? I mean, obviously, 26 members of the Five Timers Club, Buck Henry not around anymore. So to get 25 people in a room together and actually do comedy, it does take place on television. We need to do some blocking and give people enough time to say lines. I don't think it is realistic to have every single Five Timer there. But, the idea of getting as many as possible is always really exciting. And the possible combinations we could have in the room, it definitely exceeded my expectations. I want to talk about, briefly about the people who weren't there. So, Steve Martin, Elliot Gould, Chevy Chase, Candice Bergen, Danny DeVito, John Goodman, Bill Murray, Christopher Walken, Drew Barrymore, Justin Timberlake, Ben Affleck, Dwayne Johnson, Jonah Hill, Will Ferrell, and Woody Harrelson all were honored with stockings in the back that all had their initials on them. So complete shout out to the set department for putting that together. Just absolute fan service, getting to see that. Rich, was there anybody on that list that you were like, I really wish that they could have been part of this?
No, I mean, there's so many great names on that list, but I'm going to say no. I thought my guess, and I don't know, I'm sure there was, someone like Justin Timberlake still very current. I thought that this general grouping was very YouTube audience friendly. This was generally speaking a group that if my nieces watch the show, they're going to know all these people and like all of these people. So I think it was very current and very relevant casting, even though we've got some iconic cast members who wouldn't be there. Do I want to see some of those people show up? Sure, but I think that this was a good booking and a good group for me.
Kirstin, anybody on that list that you were like, I loved it, but if only they were there?
What Low Rent Santa said is really smart, the YouTube factor. I want to see them all. I was thrilled to see Melissa McCarthy, but I also have a running list, as you just mentioned, of all the people that we didn't see, including former cast members, that I think are going to be doled out through season 50. So I think they've got a deck of cards and they're just playing them out at different times. And so they're keeping us on a drip, basically.
Yeah, I think, biggest surprise, obviously not getting Steve Martin there. I think all jokes aside, he would be there if he could have been. So I'm sure that there was some sort of conflict. I also think, Will Ferrell is somebody that everybody wants to see, but he's probably going to be a big part of SNL 50. So we did get to mostly see all of these people in different Five Timers Club sketches or big moments over the years. So I would be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if every single one of them that can be there at SNL 50 will be there. I also saw that there was a stocking for Paul Simon in the back there. And I'll just say my piece on this, which is that I've actually asked the show before, and they've told me that Paul Simon's only hosted 4 times. So with respect to the people who put this together, they either use the Wikipedia list that puts a little asterisk next to Paul's name, or they just want to make my brain explode. But either way, I'm happy to honor a guy in Paul who has also been a very large part of SNL history. So that was nice as well. before we get into the actual episode and talk about some other sketches and moments
You
from
didn't
the
ask
night.
me if I. What the hell, dude? What the hell was that, John? You didn't ask
All
me.
right,
if I
Sean.
posted this.
Sean,
I
who else
gave
on the
my
list do you
answer,
want to say?
Sean. I'm reading off your
you-
notes.
Sean, you said that Rich just says what you have to say, so I didn't go to you, but I'd like to know, is
Well,
there
I wanna
anybody else?
say-
Yeah, is
But
there anyone on
listen,
the list
Rock.
that you wish
I
you
want
were?
the Rock, baby, because you know why? Because he could have hit one of these. Look at that. Look at
Yeah.
that. I just want to show off how tight my sweater was.
Sorry, I
Oh,
regret
God.
not going to you for that.
Making
at
those sequins bedazzle. Wow.
Come on, look at that, guys. That's it. Come on, you gotta go viral one of these. We're gonna make one of these go viral. These
Yes.
chesticles. You got
Oh,
that,
yeah.
Rich? What you got? What you got on that?
I got
Huh?
too much
Points
chesticles.
in
That's
your
a whole
face.
nother issue. Yeah.
All right.
All right. Well, Dwayne Johnson. Yes, I haven't seen him coming up. He's been such a big star. I don't know if he's going to be coming back to the show at any point soon, but would be a cool one. I think Melissa McCarthy, I'd say, was my biggest surprise that was actually there. Very
Yeah.
surprised to see her. She's been out of the show for like a long time, but she crushed it. And we'll talk about her in this episode in a little bit. Okay. But I do want to get to something before we talk about these sketches, which is the idea of an all-star episode of the show. This is something that I think started with the Betty White episode in 2010, where there was this campaign of like, let's get Betty White on the show. She became the oldest host in SNL history. So as a nod to, a very famous woman, let's get all the great women of SNL history, as many as we can, to join the episode. They're going to be a part of this, cold open. We're going to open up on the Lawrence Welk show. They'll be there, and then we'll incorporate them into sketches. And that became one of the most highly regarded and highest rated episodes in SNL history, where I believe they've been trying to replicate that format for many other episodes over the last 15 years. So we have seen, especially at Christmas, or sometimes it's premieres or finales, whatever it is, but sometimes we do get these moments where we're going to say, okay, it's not just Marty Short hosting the show, but it's Marty and friends, and we never know when one of them is going to pop up. So, Sean, I will go to you first on this one. How do you feel like an all-star episode of Saturday Night Live works versus just having the host run the show?
I don't know, man. I feel like with a guy like Marty, he's so good at passing the ball. Even I picked the sketch that I picked because it was very interesting. In fact, I wanted to ask if anybody's ever hosted and just let a guest take a sketch like that. But I don't know if what creates that type of attitude in someone. But most people have such egos, man, to really dedicate all those people to a week-long rehearsal and read-throughs and agree on who gets what lines, man. That's really it makes more sense when there's a host and we all know that we can, that person can allow it. But when there are all those egos together, trying to figure out who gets the right lines, I don't know how that works, man, and who gets to just play cop number two when you got all-stars like that, I don't know if it'd be watchable.
And I feel like Marty's 2012 episode was very much like this, mostly introduced into the monologue, but he did a great backstage monologue, or he sings, he goes backstage, we get to meet all these people, and then they all show up in sketches throughout the night. So I think with Marty, as big and bombastic of a performer as he is, to me, he comes across like he has zero ego whatsoever, and he's just cool to let his friends come and play. So Kirstin, do you enjoy having these episodes? Is it happening too often? How are you feeling about that?
I love it. He's a variety show person. That's, Carl Burnett show and all these shows where they're ensembles and they're, it looks like fun, quite frankly. Like, Sean, when you just described everyone being on, being at SNL for a whole week rehearsing, I was, sign me up. That sounds amazing. I'll play cop number 10. Like, I don't care. I just want to be there and be in that environment and be around all those people and be a part of it. So I personally like it. It's funny that they don't position it as that. So I think maybe that's a distinction that's interesting, is they just say it's a Martin Short thing and not a Martin Short and Friends. If sometimes they're turning it into that, maybe managing people's expectations would set a different tone for how people take that in. Because, Paul Rudd showing up in so many sketches, that was one of the only times I thought, I'm sure a cast member really would have liked that. But I usually think they're all just thrilled to be in the building with them. And they know that they're paying their dues and that hopefully they'll have that a bit more of the spotlight themselves. But in terms of, bringing on all those extra guests and friends, I love it. And I'm surprised Maya wasn't there, because she always seems like someone who is close to Marty with all the singing and dancing and the showmanship. So I'd like to think that there was a very important reason why she couldn't be.
Yeah, that's for sure. And the other one who was in this episode that we didn't talk about already was Dana Carvey, who did pop into a sketch that we'll get into in just a little bit. But yeah, Rich, how do you feel about these all-star episodes of SNL?
As John, as you've heard me say through the years, to me, when SNL is great, it's not just a funny show. It's the greatest party in the world that I'm invited to at 11:30 on Saturday night. And this was a party. I mean, I was invited to a party with some of my favorite people from all different genres, all different, eras of SNL. I thought this was so great. What I really liked about this episode is you had 11, I guess almost 12 recurring either alumni or longtime hosts. And yet what I loved about it is we did not get one of those people doing one of their characters, making it feel a little bit like, oh, this is a show from another era. We got actually so many repeating sketches of the current cast. So we get to see Marty in a Mikey Day sketch. We get to see Paul Rudd in a Marcello sketch. We get to see, and so I really liked this formula of like, what would Kristen Wiig do in an airport sketch? Not what does Aunt Linda have to say at the Weekend Update desk. So this balance for me was perfect. And I didn't think, even though a couple of people had some very funny individual moments, no one overpowered Martin Short. There was no, I thought that he still remained the focal point, where some people got some really big laughs here and there, but in general, I didn't leave this sketch going, this episode, like, when suddenly Paul McCartney's doing a song and I'm like, wait, where did Martin Short go? Like it still felt like a Martin Short hosted, as Kirstin said, variety show. I thought it was great. I thought it worked really well.
Yeah, that I could buy. I wouldn't say that nobody overshadowed Marty Short. I think that there was one, and I think you can make an argument that Melissa McCarthy did.
But in time, I mean, that was still a Martin Short sketch that she provided an amazing button to, and it was the most perfect crazy ending to such a great elevated sketch. But it still was Martin Short driving the sketch.
Yes, literally, and
good point.
Yes, and I get probably we'll talk about this, but it makes me feel like we should get Melissa McCarthy to host the show again sometime soon. Would love to see that one. But yeah, look, for me, my 2 cents on this all is that I don't want every episode of Saturday Night Live to be an all-star episode, but if there's going to be one, it's the Christmas episode every year, and it's going to be in season 50 for sure. So this, to me, checked off all the boxes. And, I always say this, which is that I think Christmas episodes are probably the most special episode of the entire year. It's when, if Lauren describes everyone loving this show as you liking it when you are in school with your friends getting to talk about it, it is the one episode that airs where you are probably at home with your family or seeing your friends back home and getting together, gathering around the couch when it's too cold outside and turning on the episode of SNL. And there's just so many more people watching the show this week that the excitement of not knowing who is going to be there, who's going to show up, what magical moments we may end up seeing are the reasons why these things happen. And for me, like, as a huge fan of the show, this was as beautiful as you can ask. So let's dive into some of these moments that we want to get into even further. And Sean, you requested to go first, so I'm going to give it off to you. What sketch are we going to talk about first?
Yeah, first of all, let me call out this chat over here, Demi, Ellie, and John. Every time Rich says something, yes, Rich, and I don't know what this is about, man. I don't know how much you're paying these people to really like to act like they're liking your takes, but you guys are kind of making me sick with this now.
John, people don't come to the chat for chest muscles. They come for commentary. So
now,
bring it. Let's go, Grant. Bring it.
About the chest bumping. What is that about, man? What do you people want? Jeez. Anyway, no. So get into my sketch, the sketch that I picked.
Yeah, bring it, Sean.
All right. So I picked, Sabado Gigante. It's the second one, and I didn't know it was going to be recurring. Usually we pick these sketches, I suppose, because they're the ones we like the most. But I just had the most questions about this one, I suppose. I mean, I don't feel like it escalated the Nate Bargatze one. I feel like Nate Bargatze was perfect in the way he was questioning the things, so none of the things changed. The show didn't escalate. Paul Rudd just kind of played a similar but less I suppose, witty or less, I don't know, he had less jokes anyway, less laugh lines character, but it was the same exact situation, fish out of water. Always fun to see a white guy be a fish out of water. That's like when I invite Rich to my parties. He's he doesn't
That's
go.
so crazy. I would never go to one of your parties. Come on.
But no. I know. Yeah, you just like to pretend you at an SNL party. I get it.
Yep.
But no, but absolutely. I mean, I feel like I thought that was not a very good use of Dana Carvey's cameo. I don't think it really hit. In fact, it took a second to even realize what it was. By the time I recognized what it was, he was gone. But I guess that's the nature of Sabado Gigante and all the different characters. But I think it was fun. I think Marcelo did a good job carrying it. He's always great in that. It's always fun to hear, it's not even Spanglish. He was speaking straight up Spanish. And, you just felt like you were still in on the joke. It's kind of the same elements of the first one where you're like, okay, there's a rhythm still. I get what's happening. I just didn't need to, in my opinion, have a part 2, but I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about that. And I'd also love to hear if that's ever happened before to test Rich's age, because he would know because he's seen all the episodes. Has anybody ever had a cameo person like take over, just do their own sketch? Because I thought Marty would have been fine and maybe even escalated with one of his characters, but I don't know. Has that ever happened before, John or Rich?
Yeah, it definitely happened. It's definitely like more of an old school type of thing. But yeah, it's pretty rare that does happen. So I was a little bit surprised. I thought that perhaps the reason, I mean, this aired right after Weekend Update. So I thought that there's a good chance we're going to get a Marty character that he really needs to get into some deep makeup for. And he had basically the musical guest performance, all of Weekend Update to then get ready for this sketch. So I was watching it sort of expecting, with all the, sort of looniness, craziness that's happening up on stage, that Marty would be in here at some point. But we didn't get that. And ultimately Paul Rudd is the star of this sketch, or at least the contestant, with Marcelo guiding everything. I do want to make one point about this that you reminded me of, Sean, which is, Dana Carvey's going to come out at one point as English Hint. And I was so excited that Dana was in the building because for me, I actually missed him last week. Like, he's such a huge part of SNL history, and to have him being in every episode almost this season, I was like, oh, I really wish Dana was here. And rewatching this episode, people know I defend Jimmy Fallon. I think he's a better cast member than he was given credit for, and I love the times that he's hosted the show, but he absolutely should not have been the one to give Marty his jacket at the end of the Five Timers Club sketch. That honor should have gone to Dana Carvey. If you're going to look for a spot to put him in the episode, you can keep Jimmy in the monologue with the I'm so attracted to you and them kissing if you want to do that with him standing with Lauren. Totally fine. But there is no reason why that shouldn't have gone to Dana. Like, that was the spot if you were looking to have him in something this week. But let's talk about Sabado Gigante, the second edition that we had here. First time was Nate Bargatze. Now this time in the Paul Rudd episode, Kirstin. So what do you think?
Are you off your soapbox?
Yes.
I agree with you, though. Sean, I think you nailed it. Is that I think the idea, or Marcelo's ability to create this character who's real, isn't he? This is a real life character in a real life show. That I enjoy a lot. If you just watch his face the entire time, it's quite brilliant. The amount of kind of times he pulls his face and does sort of hilarious things there, that I love. But now that we know the premise, and I agree that Paul Rudd didn't quite get there as much as Nate did, is the joke just that random things are going to keep happening? There's going to be a different costume, a different wacky thing. And so after a while, it's so random that it's nothing you can predict or guess. And that's got to be exhausting to come up with ideas for, right? Like, okay, now someone's going to come out and it's a baby who looks jacked, and now it's this, and now it's that. And that's a little less exciting because we can't get into it because we'll never be right. So there's no real payoff that way. I hope he doesn't come back again. I do agree that Martin Short probably could have been the one to take that up to an 11 because it's already quite high. It didn't land completely for me. And I also wonder how that got on when I look at some of the cut for time that, like Grinch, that actually looked pretty fun.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's a big set piece. There's a lot of production that goes into it, so they probably wanted to keep it. I think the first time they did this, it was really cool. I know that the real Don Francisco was really honored that Marcelo played him on the show, so it was, fun that they brought this back. I think that as from an escalation perspective, they could have gone two different ways with this, and I said that this sketch to me, Rich, is a baby between What Up With That and La Rivista della Televisione, the Bill Hader Italian guy sketch, where he's like, "Oh, you don't speak Italian." And I think you had to go one of two ways, borrowing some elements from those sketches, which is that What Up With That really works. Obviously, Keenan is just driving the car like off a cliff and just going absolutely nuts. But beyond that, there's always like the craziness of like, oh, we don't know what's going to happen next in that sketch that I don't feel like escalated fully here for me. But then in the other one, the idea that sometimes the people who are on the talk show with Bill Hader, they're like, they do either speak Italian, or they realize that Bill Hader's character isn't actually speaking Italian, and you get the guys eating spaghetti off to the side just being like. So I think that it was missing something here to make it feel different than the Nate episode. How did you feel about this one?
Similar, yeah. The context is I actually used to, on Saturdays, me and my old roommate used to watch Sabado Gigante. We would have it on as we would start drinking and getting ready, and we don't speak a word of Spanish because two reasons. What it really was like, what the hell is going on? Like, you would see like just like 16 clowns, and then there would be like a talk show segment like Sally Jesse Raphael, and then balloons. It was the craziest thing. So the amount of reality of what we're watching is very real. Loved it when Nate Bargatze did it. I actually would not have put Martin Short in this, because I think big on big becomes a hat on a hat, and I don't know that Martin Short could not do big. For me, I thought with all of the great female talent in the room, why not put Kristen Wiig or Tina Fey? Let's at least have a woman in the role instead of another clueless white guy, or even, believe it or not, Tom Hanks as an older guy, just to give us a little bit of a different color. But I agree, this is hard, where it just becomes Mad Libs, and where certain sketches work as Mad Libs because you can put in different jokes that land just on the jokes as well. This is so much of a premise sketch. We're just reliving the same premise over and over again. So certainly smiled a lot through all of it, but I don't know. And there were a couple of funny jokes, but there wasn't anything in here that I thought was sort of lived up to the show as a whole.
Let me say so yeah, you don't know what you're talking about, Rich, because I'm gonna say this. It's just like Stephen Tower said in the comments, the chaos in the sketch is the payoff. So you put Martin Short in it, see if you can get a guest that can out crazy the show. Now you have a whole nother sketch. Now you have a crazy guy trying to out crazy the craziness of the show. And maybe he's right, or somehow crazy is the language that's spoken here. Maybe it becomes deeper than that. Maybe it's not that there's a language barrier. Maybe the barrier language or communication is that the person's not crazy enough. It's not so much a language thing. It's more about how insane can you get to match the show. Now we're talking depth in sketch writing.
Sean,
hello.
I'm worried that your sweater is toxic and it's actually leaching into your skin. Crazy on Crazy works if it's a sketch that they've done 7 or 8 times. The problem with Crazy on Crazy is it would rely on you having seen the first time that they did Sabado Gigante with Nate Bargatze. If not, you're just watching Crazy on Crazy. Who are we grounded with? You got to ground someone on the episode, so we, in the sketch, so we have a way into the sketch. Crazy on Crazy, that's sweater doing pectoral muscle, that's Crazy on Crazy. I disagree.
All right.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, I mean, I'm a huge advocate for bringing sketches back. So I don't want the narrative here, if anybody at the show is listening, to be that we didn't like that you brought this back, because I actually was happy to see it again. I just, I think that there's a call for, if you're going to escalate, I think you got to go in a very specific direction with it that I don't know that this one hit. It felt a little bit more paint by numbers than maybe it could have been. But again, I was happy to see it. And I think that Marcelo, it just understates to me like how important Marcelo has been to season 50 of Saturday Night Live. In a night where we're not going to be talking about the cast very much, I want to bring him up because obviously 2 versions of this sketch, 2 versions of Domingo. He's had some big moments on Weekend Update as well. Like, this has been a really big season for probably the future star of Saturday Night Live, if he's not already getting there. So for me, the fact that he had this moment again on the show on probably, you know, the biggest night of the season, it goes to show how much they trust him moving forward. So feel good about that.
Yep.
All right, Kirstin, let's talk about the sketch that you want to get into.
All right. This is also a repeat. I would like to talk about the car altercation, car mimers. What's it officially called?
So it's called parking lot altercation.
There you go. There you go. Miming in the car.
Traffic altercation before that.
So this was done by Quinta Brunson with Mikey Day and Chloe, I believe last season or season before. And they brought it back here for Martin Short. I think Martin Short works best when they find a way to harness his energy. Because he's either in a sketch like this that is, you know, clearly fantastic. I'm going to talk about how much I love it. Or in others where everyone is acting quote unquote normal and he's the loud person. And we're all just watching and reacting to him be loud because apparently this person is a loud person. In this case, he was supposed to be loud. He was supposed to be over the top, and it worked really well. And Mikey matched him well for energy. So premise being, we've got, 2 people shopping on Christmas Eve in a mall parking lot. They fight over a spot, and so it begins this game of kind of silent or mimed communication between them both as they debate who should get the spot. Some of the pantomiming was a bit repetitive from the time before, although don't know how much they could do, but there were a few moments that I really, really liked. Blind and Braille, the Wish Genie rub, come on, the dead mom, the Lost with the flashlight. Oh, have you got something for me?
Well, I was going to play that one.
Please.
My mother is dead.
So good. How about the bull crap? The ho ho ho, and then Chloe's character really got to have fun because in the first one with Quinta, she had one kind of pepper shaker thing happening. In this one, she exposed her dad to some new habits that she has, and I loved it. I mean, great character for her. Great for Mikey, fantastic writing. Marty's energy fit right in here. And then to top it all off, like a cherry on a sundae, Melissa McCarthy shows up and just detonates this with a performance that is going to make me choose her as MVP. Fair warning. She's obviously my MVP. She plays the wife of, she shows up and takes it to a 15. She spits on the car window. She then presses her bosom, her American flag bosom, right up on the window. And I don't know how much of that was rehearsed because Chloe broke, Mikey broke. They held it well. And she twice goes up and smushes herself all over the car. And then she licks the car window, if you caught that, gives one more stank eye and just jets off. And I think we knew that we were going to see some of the people that were there show up in sketches, but this was the first one, so we weren't quite ready that it was going to happen. And all of a sudden to see her pop up the way she did, oh my God. I mean, I'm the president of her fan club.
It was such a beautiful moment, Kirstin. And honestly, like there's been a couple sequels this season that have lived up to the original sketch. And the first is the Washington Stream from that Nate episode that they did that again, and they did it so well. And this to me, again, like really, really high standard. That was one of my favorite sketches of the last few years. It could have been my favorite. It's just original live sketch of everything they did. So creative, so much fun. And I was like, really like, okay, you're going to try this again. Like you're going to walk that tightrope. And they did a lot of the things I loved here. They really like escalated the Chloe character, which to me, I said on Saturday, I think this may be my favorite thing that Chloe's ever done on the show. Because I think she's so good at this. Of course, I won't do the motions that she was doing, but I will play the line.
You blow!
The interplay.
I don't want
want to see that. And I really don't like that one hand was doing this.
Yeah.
because guys like it though.
Madison.
Yes, yes. The relationship, and I don't think Madison was her name in the first. I don't think she got a name in the first sketch. But I think what happened here is that one of the things that I always used to say, Rich, when we first started podcasting, was like I fell in love with the show by watching recurring sketches because I love character development. That's the thing that like I enjoy the most, and I love it in TV series. But on SNL sketches, it's so much fun when we could build a world and get to know these people better. And the relationship between father and daughter here, which was probably not objectively the best part of the sketch, really, really escalated this one for me. In addition to Marty and Melissa. So how did you feel about it?
Yeah, so fun. I mean, I'm glad that we didn't see this again on a on a time when Quinta is hosting again, and we're doing just an absolute like for like second take of this. Super fun, lot of fun jokes. I agree, and I agree in that I don't know that it would have been considered a capper if it not were for the Melissa ending, because that gave it something that clearly the first one did not have. And that's what I love in a reoccurring sketch, when you can really surprise us and change the formula from Mad Libs. But everything about this was great. To me, the most joyful moment of watching this sketch was actually turning to my left and watching my wife Genevieve just leaning over, laughing so hard that she couldn't breathe. And I was like, this is the greatest. This is just the greatest thing that we had this great moment of just them back and forth and Heidi. And so, was it as a script, was it, so much funnier than the first one? I don't know, but it was just so fun with such a wonderful capper. It was definitely my sketch of the night as well.
Yeah, and also like the idea that they weren't driving on the highway so that Marty's wife could get out of the car, walk around, go to the window, and then shake it against the car was so great to me. And I do feel like going back to the days of Melissa McCarthy hosting the show, like the show is missing sometimes that physical comedy element that we were getting from Kristen Wiig when she was a cast member, Kate McKinnon, Melissa McCarthy, just having these amazingly brilliant physical comedians on the show. That was so great to add this to a sketch that I think, Sean, really works because it is such a visual sketch. Like literally you're miming things to each other. So then to have someone do something so overtly physical at the end was just a great way to put that cherry on top. How did you feel about it?
Absolutely. It draws you in, and then because you're paying attention to the space work, as they call it in improv, and you're seeing these things being built, through mime. But yeah, just for Melissa to take it to the next level, but also, like you said, a ho joke as it pertains to any is like flat in and of itself. But the fact that it developed through both sketches to describe the daughter so perfectly, given the time of year, that was just really good, strong writing to bring it all together and to button that. And let me make it clear, like you said, like Kristen Wiig, there's a lot of physical. It has nothing to do with your weight. I know a lot of people brought up Chris Farley or something like that. There's a lot of great comedic athletes. Martin Lawrence in his prime, in his younger days, was one of them who can move around in space and be funny. Cat Williams on stage at a certain point. As you get older, Rich knows you can't do as many things.
Oh, Sean, I know it so well. I know, yeah. And
Well,
by the way, you know who was one of the great physical comedians in his generation of Saturday Night Live was Martin Short. I mean, the physicality of Martin Short in season 10 was he could walk in a room and you knew he was doing a new character just because of the walk and the gait of the new character that walked in. So I hate to agree with Sean, but it is a great point that we don't have the physical humor of the show now is often in gore and special effects and costuming and makeup, not in the physicality of the comedians on the show.
Yeah, like a Molly Shannon throwing herself into piles of chairs and such.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a good point because I do wonder, we always praise the show for how great the entire crew is, every department making the show look so good. And I wonder if making the show look so good sometimes takes away from the idea that there could be this one performer in this space where they can go do something crazy. They can do a backflip. They can go run through walls, do all this stuff. that, you know, and again, it's one of those things that works in small doses. Like if we had a physical comedian on the show was like breaking through every single time, I think that, you know, that was the problem for Farley, is that he just overused it at a certain point where it just kept being very repetitive. But I just think we've sort of gone away from it to the point where this episode, it was so obvious to me about how great it was to have it back. And you're so right with Marty. I mean, Ed Grimley, you know, one of the greatest, you know, to have on the show, and him just literally running back and forth in a room was as entertaining as can be. So, you know, it would have been that is something that I do wish we would have gotten in this episode, is just to have, with those other physical comedians in the building, to have Marty play off them if he still can, would have been incredible.
But we might have killed them in the process on live TV. So maybe it was good we played it safe.
Yes, we did get a little Jackie Rogers Jr. dance at the end of the monologue.
I loved it. I loved that little call out in the monologue. It was beautiful. Yes.
Yeah, some good fan service there. So, you know, really, really happy they brought this back. And yeah, so Laurent Santa, I'll head back over to you. What moment of the night do you want us to talk about?
You know, I could talk about almost any sketch, but I do think, as far as reoccurring, to me, what so much fun was the Weekend Update tradition of joke swap. I thought this was such a heightened joke swap. This was so much fun. And Sean, prepare to roll your eyes about what I'm about to say. This is so comedy nerd, what I'm about to say. You're going to throw up in your mouth. You know, the premise that we've been doing lately of like, oh, we're going to bring on a rabbi to listen, or a civil rights leader to listen to Colin make the jokes. The comedy math of that never worked for me, because the rabbi hears that Michael Che is writing the jokes that Colin is saying. So why would Colin be embarrassed to say things that the rabbi knows that Michael Che wrote? Never worked for me. But to bring in his wife, Scarlett Johansson, was so brilliant to me, because in real life, we know that Colin Jost does not have to do joke swap. If he was so offended by how his wife was treated, he could tell the show, we are no longer doing joke swap because I will get divorced. So she is watching comedy that her husband has blessed, even if he did not write it. And that, to me, elevated the moment so high. And you know, obviously she agreed to be on camera. That was all planned. And maybe Che, you know, she actually didn't get hurt that hard in this. It was really he that got hurt. But so much of the elevation here in having him do the quote unquote black voice and writing it, and the you know, coming back to that shiz and all that stuff. And the final thing I will say is, usually in joke swap, Che says some things that are a little bit embarrassing, and it's all about Colin being embarrassed. But when they brought up the last stuff about Jay-Z, the look of fear in Michael Che's eyes when he saw it on the card was just such a perfect kind of like tit for tat, that I just thought this was so fun.
Yes, that was so great. He was just worried that he would not be able to walk out of the studio. And I think that Colin also was worried that he was going to be able to walk out of 8H to go see Scarlett's face. But there were so many brilliant moments in this. Sean, since you were called out directly, what are your thoughts on the joke swap?
Oh yeah, that was great. I mean, you know, it creates in and of itself the tension. Like, they don't have to really write jokes; they just have to write things that would be embarrassing for the other person to say within some form of a joke structure. It's barely joke structure at all. But man, let me tell you something. Shizzz is good stuff, man. I don't know what was wrong with that. He wasn't hitting it right. You know, that's a good way to punch up them jokes, man. You know,
how do you hit it?
Shizzz, huh?
Well, how do you hit it? Like, what's the right way to say that?
Like that.
Yeah, because here I'll play you how Colin said it.
Shizzz.
Yeah. Sean, how did this joke work for you?
I've been eating roast beef every night since my wife had the kid.
That's good stuff, man. Look, every comedian is going to choose. Well, you have to choose your family or you know, people around you, you know, over a joke, man. You got to go for the joke. I think that's what they really honed in on with this particular Weekend Update. Every comedian will always, we sign up to expose ourselves emotionally, you know, and unfortunately the people closest to us have to kind of suffer in that, right? They don't really have to do it often because they're doing pop culture jokes, right? They're not really digging into themselves, especially on Colin. He's not, to my knowledge, doesn't have any specials. I know Shay has a few that might dig into his personal life. I'm not really well versed on Shay's specials. I think he has 2. But, all great stand-ups. Bernie Mac, when he's talking about his family and he's going through, he's talking about the kids being a certain way and his sister being on drugs and things like that. And did those people necessarily sign up for their business to be out in the streets? No. But, as comedians, you got to go for the joke, man, the funniest thing. And to watch that happen in real time, Colin would have to use, like you said, make that decision. Of course, it's an easier decision because there's no way that he just says, I'm not doing that joke. That would be crazy. It would ruin, like you said, that would end it right there. If either one of them said that, we would never see it again. So it's such a classic moment. I don't know how you stop doing this. I don't know how once Michael Longfellow and Devin take over the Weekend Update desk, I don't know how you.
Hot take.
Huh?
Hot take.
Yeah, come on, it's happening, baby. I'm speaking into existence for Mikey Longs. But I don't know if they could do it. I don't think that this particular report is happening in a very specific moment in time. I don't know if we could that might have been the last one. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? Kirstin, you have a kid, so what do you think about the
what? What was that?
Oh no!
I'm out. I'm ashamed.
No.
Well, I kind of add another best of moment before we get to the end of the year.
Oh my God, that's not how that works. Okay.
What'd you think of Joke Swap?
Rich, you said that Scarlett, it wasn't as bad for her as it was for Colin. I beg to differ. No woman wants your bits talked about that way at all. She clearly was in on the joke. It was like a roast, right? She knew that it was going to be dirty and raunchy. And I think one of the reasons why she gets along so well at SNL and just seems to be the type of woman who both men and women like is that she just seems like she'll laugh at that. Like she's not going to lose her shit. So I think it was like a roast. I think it was hilarious. I think after all these years together as a duo, Jost and Shay, like their comfort level with each other is awesome. If you were to go watch them in their first season, they are very much more awkward. And so now this seems delightful to watch. I don't know how they escalated from here though. I don't know at what point, like where do you take it? And the internet says that Jost got the worst of it. I agree with you, John. I think Che, I think it was you were saying this. I think he did look genuinely distraught at what he had to say, especially that last line. What do you say? I'll get you off.
Yep.
Yes.
Holy shit. Like Diddy no one wants to associate with Diddy right now. So that was a really nice jab. I thought while the Scarlett stuff was an immediate kind of superficial haha, the Diddy stuff cut deep. That was no one wants to be a part of that.
So that's what I was gonna say, which was that I think obviously the Colin Jost Scarlett stuff was the most overtly funny part of this, but Che, because Jost is so easy to dunk on, when you really get at Che, it means more.
It's so great.
Yeah. So for me, it's like that moment of panic on his face, like really made this as classic of a moment as possible. Otherwise, we would have just been like, remember that time that Che really got Jost? But that's not this. Like he found like the one thing that he could really get at Michael Che about. So it felt like a tie. It felt like a draw in a way, even though that it ended on the Scarlett stuff. But for me, this was an absolute win. And again, like it's like one of those things that like we all come out and being like, well, they did it. They're never going to top it. And they just keep finding ways to top it. And for me, I love your point, Rich, about why this one may be the best joke swap they've ever done. So incredible stuff. All right, I want to talk about one of the sketches that we got on the show. So some new material we got on the show this time. And this is a sketch I don't think I gave much credit to on Saturday night, but on rewatch, there was some good stuff here. Let's talk about an act of kindness. So we have a pre-tape where Heidi Gardner is walking down the street and Kenan Thompson is, unhoused, or is alluded to that, and is, on the street and sees that Heidi dropped a gift, and out of an act of kindness gives her back the gift. So she decides, this rich, posh woman is going to take care of him, going to bring him to get a haircut, go to see the tailor, put him in a suit, give him some money to live in a hotel. And then, we're seeing this all happen throughout the day. And the turn on the sketch is the call comes in. Mikey Day, her husband, says, where the fuck are you? Your whole family is here. It's Christmas Eve. You're not here. And he's ends up taking the phone. He's like, don't worry, I got this. And then he's like, basically says,
your girl is with me now, you heard?
And I was so on the high of the evening, going from those first 3 segments of the cold open, the monologue, and traffic altercation, that I didn't give this enough credit. But truly, Kenan's performance in this and the turn on it from going, this man who was full of wonder to then just being like,
it's still your bitch o'clock,
was perfect. And it was so good to me. So I really loved everything about this, much more than I realized. I minus the last card that came up on the end of the sketch, but beyond that, everything else was really good here. And Kirstin, I know before the show you said you were excited to talk about this one as well. So what were your thoughts on it?
I also thought it was great. I heard you talk about how much you dislike the ending. I disagree with you. And I'll tell you why. I think the commentary here was very American. So maybe it's us Canadians. But the fact that they made it look like it was a Fox endorsement of sorts really told me that people, they're talking about how Fox News is proving that all of the stereotypes are going to live up to be true. And, mind your own business, take care of your own. Even if you do something nice, it's not going to matter in the end. Like, it just felt like that it needed to be that. It needed to prove the point that you should never do anything nice. You should just look out for yourselves, and you should stay white, keep your money, stay rich, whatever they said. So I didn't mind that ending whatsoever. I thought Mikey, who often gets to an 11, was great here, and it was hilarious. Him swearing, you could see chaos in the background. I thought Kenan, while he put on his regular Kenan voice as he was at the end in the clips you showed, the sincerity of the voice prior to was something new from him. He seemed so genuine and so sweet. It was so believable. And then all of a sudden you realize he's stolen the watches and he's deviant. What was his name? Deviant something of the D Train.
Ricardo, the D Train Deviant Dumont.
There you go. He was really a baddie all along. So I thought they were great performances, good writing, and I didn't mind the ending because that's where we got some actual subversive commentary on the whole thing.
Yeah, I see it. I just think it's like a little bit of a cop-out. So, for me, like, I feel like there was like a moment here of like pure, like riding on emotions. It's the holidays, like you're seeing something really sweet happen. And then there's a good turn on the sketch that isn't just like his head explodes, which we've been seeing every episode. So I thought that, I don't think it needed it. And that's where I like wonder. But yes, I would love to know, Rich, how you thought about this one.
I liked it. I didn't like it as much as you guys. For me, I'm interested to hear what Sean has to say about this. To me, the comedy math is always the longer you drag out a setup, the more unexpected the turn has to be. And as we set this up, it's so long that, of course, I'm not a comedy writer. I'm just a fan of SNL. And I'm thinking, well, the two obvious jokes are either one, he's actually going to steal from her, or two, he is not actually homeless and he actually has money. It's going to be one of those two things. Please surprise me. The longer we stretch that out, the more that I can't help but sort of think about that. When Heidi gets the phone call and Mikey says, "Where are you?" I was so pleasantly surprised in that moment. Like, oh, that's a turn I didn't see. Oh, like, wait a minute. What is she doing? This is Christmas. She has a family. And then for me, unfortunately, it turned right to the thing that I thought it was going to be the entire time of, oh, and now he's going to screw her over and steal from her. Once that happened, I will say the execution of it was very fun. Kenan will make me laugh reading the phone book. He, revealing the second watch and steal your bitch o'clock. All of that was great. But for me, it was a bit of a letdown because I saw that coming. And I will say, I'm going to side with Kirstin. I at least liked the tag of the Fox News to at least do an unexpected twist on what I had seen coming, in that, oh, it's Fox News trying to reinforce, bad racial stereotypes. So at least that for me was a bit of a twist. So I still liked it. I'd say I didn't like it as much as you guys.
Yeah, like, see, the only thing I wouldn't have minded in that moment would be like if it was a happy holidays from Saturday Night Live, be careful whose gifts you pick up off the street type of thing. Like that's the thing that I don't like. But I just felt like I don't know why we needed to keep going and twisting.
Maybe because I saw that coming.
Yeah.
I knew it was. I would love if this sketch to have been more about, let us know about the Heidi character who chooses to help out a stranger instead of spending time with her own children and her husband. That to me would have been an interesting sketch that I haven't seen variations of before.
Yeah, that's true. And I'll also say huge shout out to Mikey Day and Streeter Seidel who wrote this, yet Mikey was barely in it, only at the point of the turn. So, just shows how selfless they could be when they put this together. Sean, how did you feel about this one? Are you more with any of us on the panel?
Yeah, I mean, it's got those I think it needed that button at the end just because they needed to have a cop out, in my opinion. I think like knowing that turn was coming, like Rich says, you're like, it changes the tone. Like we just live in a society with racial like undertones in comedy where you're just like afraid, and you're like, SNL is like that old friend where you're like, Rich will say a thing, and you're like, he doesn't mean it like that. You'll apologize for him. He's from another time, like that kind of thing. Like he might not get. Now it changes if Ego is playing that role instead of Heidi, right? I mean, I know that sucks that it's just so plain and visual like that, but like you don't take it. There's just racial undertones where you're like, oh gosh, here comes the black guy about to, do something like that. But if it's Fox saying it, or they write that with that in mind the whole time, like, hey, the holidays are not an excuse for people to step outside of this guy's homeless for a reason or whatever it is, or he's like. That it's not a race. I don't know. I think it needed something to excuse to get us off that racial undertone thing, or just attack it and say that's why we did it, because it's Fox speaking, not us. We're not completely unaware that you can read this a certain way, or insensitive to the idea that it could be looked at a certain way.
Do you think, though, that they got rid of that at the beginning when he goes to give the gift back? Like the gift falls and you're like, oh, it's going to get, here he is, the homeless guy and the rich white lady. Like they kind of shot that down near the start when the whole premise was he's like, no, you drop this. Because we were expecting something to happen there. And we were like, oh, okay, no, keep going. And then it was like, oh, no, this is like clearly a good deed. But then you're right. It kept going.
Because if he's a guy that's going to steal your car, why wouldn't he have just taken that thing? I wonder what turned in him to make him evil. If he's, like now it just doesn't make sense character-wise. Like, how does this character get built through time if his first, our introduction to him is he does a nice thing and then he steals a car at the end? Well, how we get here?
He's just a great grifter, or he,
maybe he
playing a long con.
Then we have to expose that. Like, how does he know that people are just going to do this now? Like him giving back a tiny gift is going to lead to me being able to be in position to steal your car. He doesn't seem to know that because he seems shocked, like, oh, she's coming on to me. But then somehow that turns, he's not even interested in her. He just he wants a car.
And then he punched the valet. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's Keenan, though. Keenan can get away with these characters that are kind of like disjointed. I'm like, he's not mathing as far as his point of view. Like, what is this guy's solid point of view? You can't tell through his different actions, but Keenan is really good at just riding these characters, and you just like, whatever, man. It's fun. It's fun to watch, and yeah, man. It didn't seem to. It copped out. It acknowledged the racial undertones, and it seemed fun. I think it was cool.
Yeah, and you know what? Watching it live, I was privileged enough not to think about that. So I wasn't thinking about, oh, this is like a black guy and a white woman, and how like they're trying to portray classier and how this works and all of that stuff. And like I guess because of that, I see the button. I'm so like anti-button on the end of a sketch that for me it just became like noise. But I guess like, you know, from your perspective, and all credit to you, Sean, for pointing that out. It really does like wrap a bow on the present of the sketch that, you know, you had that at the end, and it sort of explained away the character choices that they made here. So I think I like it more now that you explained it that way, and I appreciate that. So good job.
All right, I'm whooping ass.
Yeah, you're kicking ass. All right, but let me send it right back to you, Sean, because I'd love to know if there was anything on your list from the episode that you saw that you want to rapid fire on.
Ooh, man, but Bowen's drone, man, that was tight. I mean, it gets overshadowed by the joke swap, but that drone was tight work.
Yes,
I agree. That was great.
It was really fun getting to see Bowen Yang there, who obviously had a really big night, was a part of pretty much everything throughout the show. And they did give him his moment to do some Wicked and perform on stage. You know, obviously with the joke swap, that's going to be the thing that everybody's going to talk about. But Bowen had a great moment on Update as well. Rich, I'm going to go to you next. Do you have anything on your list that you want to make sure we rapid fire on?
I thought that the peanut sketch at the end was not necessarily hilarious, but it was so fun. And in an episode and in a bit of a season where the current cast has taken a bit of a backseat to alumni and cameos, this was such a warm, wonderful thing to see so many of the cast members playing Peanuts characters. I thought it was fun. And overall in the episode, huge shout out to the wardrobe and costume department. I mean, there was so many, and the drone itself was so great. So much fun in this episode, just visually to see across the board. So lot of fun.
Yeah, there was a lot of good stuff there. I thought that Marty and Bowen played off each other really well. Marty was really funny in this.
Charlie Brown
Yes.
is dead?
To me. He's dead to me.
And the whole bit with Mikey.
Your name is Pig Penis?
You know, and you know, this was also written by Streeter and Mikey. Had a huge episode: parking lot altercation, an act of kindness, and the Charlie Brown Christmas. I mean,
Wow.
they just
So
really,
great.
yeah.
And by the
dominated.
way, I wanted to mention the thing about the Charlie Brown Christmas when it started is I thought we have now in the years Charlie Brown's been around, we've heard all of the retread. Oh, Peppermint Patty is a lesbian and blah, 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 like, and it was so nice that it wasn't a retread of all of the same hackneyed Charlie Brown commentary jokes. It was just putting interesting characters into the Charlie Brown world and letting the Charlie Brown characters, including Snoopy, be the straight men in the sketch, which I thought was really a nice twist.
Totally. And, you know, just seeing all the cast members there having fun, dancing with each other, all in the, you know, amazing outfits. Like for me, like that is also what
So
SNL
wonderful.
Christmas is about. It's just about them having fun. Like ending on that sketch was awesome, I'm sure, for all of them. All right, Kirstin, let's go through your list of things that you always bring to the show that you want to bring up.
Yeah. I will echo the wardrobe and hair and makeup. The Charlie Brown wardrobe, when you look at Pigpen's, the little flies and stuff coming off him, I mean, it was brilliant. I also liked how they kept looking at, what's the piano player's name?
Schroeder.
Yes.
Yeah, they just kept, you know what I'm talking about. Very
Yes.
funny. But yeah, hair and makeup was fantastic. The set design in that Charlie Brown one with the two-dimensional kind of flat chairs and stuff. I really enjoyed that. I mean, some random shout outs. Tina Fey's hair was great in the cold open. Paul Rudd's skin continues to be, he enjoys the fountain of youth. He has found it somehow. It's luminous. It's amazing. Eggo's arms in the opening, go back, check them out. And I just love that Martin Short has become this person that, like wanting to be roasted by Jeff Ross. Like, I want him to insult me. He just has such, like, who else would I want to insult me but Martin Short? Just like, he's such a lovable person. I was so glad that we got to see him do this. And I'm inviting him to insult me anytime.
Yeah, I'm sure it's such a thrill for Lorne to have him in the building. And we also got this great line from Marty in the opening.
Lauren and I are very close friends. We're kind of like Trump and Elon Musk without the sexual tension.
Love that we get those as well. And him, I mentioned him kissing Jimmy Fallon.
God, I'm attracted to you.
with Lauren looking on. Like, Lauren has been a part of some just incredible moments in these monologues, watching Marty, and he just the way that he looks at Marty, and it cracks up. It's such a great moment to me always. But yeah, I think we covered so much of this great, brilliant episode of Saturday Night Live. Definitely my favorite episode of the season. I'm so happy that it came together in the way that it did, and it really feels like the kickoff to the SNL 50 celebration coming up in February. So let's do some MVP discussion about who we think the voters voted for this episode. So Sean, give me who you think the top 3 is.
Look, of course, got to go Melissa McCarthy, Bowen Yang. And look, man, don't sleep on my man Longfellow's line in that airport sketch. That thing was hilarious. And I know Mikey Longfellow's mommy watches. I'm going Mikey Longfellow. Just because I can do
For all of us who definitely remember the line, what was the line?
Something about hands.
It was let us touch you. Yeah.
Oh,
let us
yeah,
massage.
yeah.
Yeah.
The massagers. All right, Kirstin, who do you think the top 3 is?
Melissa McCarthy and her bosom. I'm gonna say Keenan because of the pre-tape and Snoopy. He had some great Snoopy lines. They were pretty funny.
That was good. That was this one.
Snoopy look like a bitch to you?
And Martin Short, why not? Because again, he's just a bundle of joy.
Rich?
I'm so bad at this, but I'm going to guess Martin Short first, Melissa McCarthy, Bowen.
Okay. All right. Let's see who the top 5 are as voted by you for week number 10, halfway through the season of Saturday Night Live. And here we go. Number 1 is Melissa McCarthy, 22% of the vote. Just above Marty at 18% of the votes. So our host did make it there in the number 2 slot. Jost comes in 3rd place, 17% of the vote. Che in 4th with 11% of the vote. And Scarlett Johansson is with 6% of the vote. So we got the Weekend Update combo there with ScarJo rounding out after Melissa and Marty Short. Rich, how do you think the voters did for this one?
I mean, you're really saying that basically that the joke swap got like 31% of the vote. So that's really telling, which I called. So I'm gonna put it in my win column for me.
Yes, definitely. This was really exciting to talk about. So glad we got to cover it in the way that we did. Okay, typically at this time, we would talk about the next episode of Saturday Night Live, which we don't have any headliners for yet. So hopefully I think we get that the second week of January. So we'll do some just general, thoughts on the season and expectations for 2025. We have 10 more episodes of the season to go, plus that special anniversary show that we're all anticipating happening on February 16th. So the show will return on January 18th, and we'll have 2 January episodes and then SNL 50. So Sean, season overall, how are you feeling, and are you excited for 2025?
I'm excited. I'm definitely gonna lock in more. I think Rich might have won this one. I had some pretty lazy takes, but you know what? I'm coming back next year. I'm gonna kick some ass, and I'm gonna be watching a lot more thoroughly. I'm gonna be locked in, and maybe I have to go back to season 10, and make up for this age gap.
Sean, I have some videos I can show you that summarize the season, so I'll send those over to you. Yeah, but Kirstin, how are you feeling about season 50 overall now that we're halfway through the season, and what might you be expecting in 2025?
Oh, I'm so happy. It's amazing. I am excited. Like on my bingo card, who do I have as hosting? I mean, I think we're going to get some of the heavy hitters, like a Will Ferrell, Eddie Murphy, Scarlett, hopefully now Melissa McCarthy, Emma Stone, Amy Poehler. I do think that they're going to fill this lineup with people that can take on the hosting of a show and appear in a whole bunch of 50th special event content. So I am excitedly and eagerly awaiting the release of who's going to be hosting upcoming shows. And I hope that there are some more musical artists that I discover, like McGee. That was phenomenal, by the way. So I hope that they keep making choices like that.
It'll be really fascinating to see who they pick for these January hosts and if they want to use up any big names when knowing that we're going to get a lot of people in the building in February. Rich, the last time we had you on the podcast, believe it or not, was the Roundtable of the premiere. So it's been a few months since we got your thoughts overall on the season. So give me a summary about how you're feeling about season 50 and what you would be looking forward to seeing in the second half of the season.
Really strong season, a lot of fun. To me, at the expense of the cast. I feel like this has been a season of alumni and cameos, and other than a few, Marcelo, other than Bowen, I feel like a lot of people, great people, old timers like Ego, new faces, are not getting the screen time because they're going to, Andy Samberg, or they're going to Melissa McCarthy. So I hope that we don't lose the cast of season 50 to the expectation of season 50, and we get to see more of this cast, give them chances to shine, so that we can have the next Kristen Wiig, the next Will Ferrell, the next Tina Fey, which you can't have if the current cast keeps getting overshadowed by other people. That said, think the season's great. I agree with you. I think that we'll see young faces hosting that are not going to be part of the 50th. The challenge is always, remember, the writers have two jobs now. They have to write the shows that are coming up, and they have to write the 50th. You'll see that, Jimmy Kimmel almost talks about how his show would suffer when they were writing the Oscar, material. So I think it's going to, so reliance on previous sketches, reoccurring sketches where they can do a little bit of Mad Libs. I think we're going to see more of that, because you want to of course we're going to have great episodes, but you want to put the effort to the 50th, which is always the most impossible thing. So I'm excited to see where it goes. Very excited, obviously, for the 50th.
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't know that the writers, I'm sure there'll be a couple that are involved, but I don't know that the writers of the current season will be too involved in writing the special, just because there's going to be so many big names that are going to come back. I know, like, Seth has talked about how he was asked already to help write the special. I assume like Seth and Tina and Smigel and like a lot of big names from
you bring
SNL
back
history.
Jim Downey, you're going to have something pretty great. That would be amazing.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, it's also a celebration of the greatest writers in the history of the show, and I think we're going to get a lot of them to come back.
Conan.
Also, Mikey
Conan
and Streeter are basically writing the show right now.
Well, it's not been every episode. I mean, they were
I
working
know.
on Nate Bargatze's special, but so I think they've been like a little bit out of it. But yeah, I mean, they're a huge part of the show. And like I said, I do think, as Rich said, I think January is going to be very tame. I think we're not going to get a lot of cameos. We're going to have probably two younger hosts. The season's going to look very normal. And every single person that you could possibly imagine being at the show will be saved for that weekend in February, where we will have a ton of coverage. So before we get there, we still have a lot of stuff happening here on the Saturday Night Network. So one more podcast this week to cover this episode of Saturday Night Live. That's Wednesday night. Sorry, it's not Wednesday night, Wednesday Christmas. Thursday, I will be back with Mike Murray and Andrew Dick to talk about this episode of Saturday Night Live. We'll go through all of the screen time stats, appearances, everything we need to talk about from this episode. So that will be Thursday. Stay tuned to our social media for the actual time of that show.
Wednesday is also the first day of Hanukkah, you sell out. Why don't you know that, John?
I do know that. Yeah, that's for sure. But yes, we won't broadcast live on the first night of Hanukkah or Christmas, but we will be here on Boxing Day to talk through on By the Numbers. So we'll have that. Our hope is we're trying to get everything you need to know about SNL season 19 ready to go for Thursday night as well. So if that's ready to go for you guys and you'll enjoy that, we will have we'll use By the Numbers as sort of a lead into that. So maybe we will go live and then we'll have the premiere of season 19. So look forward to that. Over on Patreon, we will also have our breakdown of a sketch. The poll is out now. So if you want to register, patreon.com/the SNL Network, you'll get some extra content. We got a fun SNL sketch breakdown coming out later in the week. We're also going to have our form coming out for patrons to register. So if you ever want a podcast about SNL, you can do so on our patron feedback show coming up at the start of the new year. January 6th, we'll have our first feedback show of the year. So all of our patrons can register for that one. We'll have our mid-season By the Number show, and then we'll have full coverage of episode 11 of season 50 starting January 18th. So so much happening here at the SNN. Sean, what's going on with you?
Guys, this weekend, San Jose Improv, San Jose, California, December 27th and 28th. Was that the second or third day of Kwanzaa? We don't believe in Boxing Day here. I'm American. Kwanzaa, come out. It's King Batch's special. It's going to be directed by Joe Coy. The 28th, big deal. Get your tickets now. I'm gonna be on. It's gonna be amazing. We run a 2-man show, and Joe Coy is gonna be an amazing director. He does so many fabulous specials. Also, just to put you on the spot, John, I see a lot of people in the chat putting Bob Odenkirk, all these. Who is the greatest all-time head writer in SNL history? Go, 2 seconds.
Downey.
Okay.
Yeah. I feel like you're Rich. That's a fair take, right?
I think so.
Yeah, we haven't done writers draft or writers rankings, but I feel like, yeah, I mean, Seth quarterbacked my favorite era of the show, but I got to give it up. I mean, Downey was the king.
I think so too. Yeah.
So that's that. Kirstin, thank you so much for joining us. Anything that you would like to plug?
As usual, I will plug our Generation Women shows. So if you're in the Toronto area, Generation Women is an intergenerational storytelling event. We have a woman in her 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s plus all tell a personal story on a shared theme. It's a beautiful night. Our next show is January 23rd. So if you're in Toronto, go to generationwoman.ca and please come support female voices.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely go ahead and do that. Rich Tackenberg, so great to get to catch up with you again. Anything that you would like to say to our listeners?
Oh, I would like to really support and shout out to my not working from Christmas Day to New Year's Day. I'm very excited by that. There will be sleeping and eating and watching stand-up comedy specials. Really looking forward to that. So, yeah, all good. It's great to be here.
Hope you enjoy that. So to never miss anything we got going on here at the SNN, subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, turn on those notifications so you know that when we go live. We always appreciate comments, feedback, star ratings as much as you can. You can also follow us at the SNL Network for all of the content. We put up a ton of stuff for Marty Short and the Five Timers Club on social media. So in case you missed any of those graphics, our team was working overtime. So huge shout out to Matt and to Ellis and to Cameron for putting up all those graphics over the last few days. Emma, Julia behind the scenes as well. Just appreciate all of our amazing team here at the SNN working very hard. I want to thank LateNighter.com for being our producing partner for the show tonight. So incredible to get to work with them this year, and happy to continue that in 2025. And just really all of our panelists, everyone in the chat that joined us live, we really appreciate all of you. We hope you all have a very happy holidays, no matter what you are celebrating, and that you can go back and watch some amazing SNL Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa sketches, whatever you decide to watch. We hope you enjoy it. So on behalf of Sean Grant, Kirstin Rajala, and Rich Tackenberg, my name is John from the Saturday Night Network, and we will see you next time, everybody. Have a good one.